Okay, you are back with comedian David Boyle, and I'm quitting alcohol. Remember how I told you maybe like a week or two ago, I forget what day it was, but the episode was called Hey Teacher, how I ended up in the back of the car with one of my high school teachers, and yeah, whatever, listen to the episode. Anyway, I was speaking to a bunch of mates that I went to high school with. We're in a fucking 20-man group. It's basically just two or three of the guys in the group just sending out the worst porn they can find. But it came up in the chat. We were talking about that teacher I told you the story about. And it turns out she fucking hooked up with everyone. One of the guys in the group said he kissed her a few times. Another one fucked her. And another guy who wasn't even in the group banged her as well. And another one of the guys in the group said he'd seen her around a couple of times over the last few years. And he's like, she's not what I remember her looking like. Things have gone a little bit downhill. And I'm like, what are you talking about? That was nudging 20 years ago. All this shit was going down. And she wasn't really that attractive either. We were just horny as fuck 16, 17, 18-year-olds. That makes a difference. That's how it came up. Some teacher in South Africa, some rugby player's niece, she got busted fucking a few of her students. And her nude photos came out, and one of these seedy bastards tracked them down and posted them. And Jesus Christ, that South African teacher is an absolute fucking smoke show. The teacher that hooked up with my mates, not even in the same vicinity as the South African teacher. Anyway, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to do another episode of Informed-ish. Boyle breaks down history. So my last Informed-ish was how communism came into Russia. I'm pretty sure I nailed everything in that episode. And so I was just thinking I might stick to that theme for this week too. I'm going to break down how communism came into Vietnam. I'm not going to do the Vietnam War. I'm going to do a little period that people don't even fucking remember. It's the period from when the Chinese got kicked out to when America came in. Yeah, so the Vietnamese were fighting China for fucking ever. The Chinese were like, we're going to come to Vietnam and we're going to start selling fried rice and beef and black bean. And the Vietnamese were like, we don't fucking like beef and black bean. Fuck off, China. And so Vietnam and China were fighting for fucking ages. And the French were actually watching this fight. The French were like, I tell you what, I think the Vietnamese people like croissants. I think we can make some serious cash selling croissants in Vietnam. So the French started supplying guns to the Vietnamese to fight the Chinese. Or if not guns, fucking weapons. Swords, knives, machetes. I don't know. And that's a little bit of a tip you can get from history as well. If a country supplies your country with guns, you're eventually going to have to use those guns to fight them off. Because countries just don't give other countries guns. They don't arm other countries just for the hell of it, just because you're a good bloke. They give them to you because you've got something they want, and they don't want the people who are trying to get it off you now to get it first, if you understand what I mean. It's happened all throughout history, or in at least 3 or 4 examples. So the French were sending weapons to the Vietnamese so they could eventually start up a croissant business in Vietnam. And then just slowly the French started opening little croissant stalls all around Vietnam. And then in 1860-something, Napoleon Dynamite, he ended up invading Vietnam and just said, listen cunts, croissant is king now. And the Vietnamese were like, we don't like croissants. We eat pho. That is pho. P-H-O for the uneducated plebs out there. So some of the Vietnamese people were like, we hate croissants. We like pho. And then some of the other Vietnamese were like, fuck it. We'll make some banh mi rolls, some Vietnamese rolls. We'll put as many ingredients as we can possibly stuff into a roll and we'll sell them. And so the French sold croissants everywhere in Vietnam for like 80 years. They completely dominated the market with croissants. Some people weren't that fucking into it. So the country started naturally getting divided between the North and South. The North was like the Vietnamese that loved fur, and the South were the ones that liked fur but could also eat a croissant as well. And during that 80-year period, there was a lot of animosity against the French. No one really liked the French. No one even likes the French when the French are just in France, let alone rocking up to your country in fucking gay stockings. So there was that 80-year period there where the French ruled, and then came World War II. And so what happened then was Japan were looking for new territory to sell ramen. And so the Japanese came in and just fucking set up ramen stores everywhere. And the Japanese probably thought to themselves, it's ramen. It's kind of like fur. It's nothing like fur. Fuck your ramen. I've only had like 1 or 2 good ramens in my entire life. I've had thousands of good fur. That's what the Vietnamese people said too. So during World War II, ramen was sold everywhere. The Japanese fucking run the joint with the help from the French too. The French was still selling croissants a lot of places. So then the end of World War II came and the Japanese had to surrender to the Allies. And out of fucking nowhere, Ho Chi Minh rocks up. It wasn't really out of nowhere. Ho Chi Minh had been lurking around for years. He went to France when he was younger. He started the Communist Party in France. And then he went to Russia to learn some shit. And then he went to China to learn some more shit. And then he went on a holiday and came back to Vietnam in 1941. So in 1945, when Japan surrendered, Ho Chi Minh had already started the Viet Minh, which was some communist military thing. But when Japan surrendered, the Hoch came out and he declared independence for Vietnam. He said, fuck you, we eat fur, we've had enough of your fucking croissants, we've had enough of your fucking ramen, get the fuck out. And everyone was like, who's this cunt? And someone in the background was like, that's the fucking Hoch, Ho Chi Minh. So the Hoch went to Geneva after the war. Vietnam was split up along the 17th parallel, dividing it north and south. The people in the north were the Ho Chi Minh fur eaters, and the people down south were croissant-loving Vietnamese. So North Vietnam was communist. They were under Ho Chi Minh, and all the people in North Vietnam who didn't want to live under communist rule were given the option to go to South Vietnam. So they went down to the South Vietnam, and some bullshit government was put in place down south, a puppet government for the French. And then basically the Hoch was like, fuck this puppet motherfucking government down south. We're going to take them over too. So he sent out all his best fur makers, and they just started feeding the poor people in the villages delicious fur. And then eventually the people were like, oh yeah, we love fur. Fuck these croissants. And then the Viet Minh, Hoch's crew, armed with like rocks and sharpened bamboo, ended up going to war with the French, eventually started dominating the French, and then the French were like, oh, we suck. Can you please help us, USA? And so the US started funding the French to fight their war, which anyone who knew the French army at that time knows was a fucking waste of money. And so that's how the US got dragged into war with Vietnam. And that's Boyle Breaks Down History for this week. And just 2 side notes. 1, French food is fucking overrated. Who even likes it? I've been to like 6 French restaurants in my life and they all fucking suck. Good ones too. I'm looking over at the other table and people are pretending to enjoy their meal. I just wanted to throw it in the waiter's face. And 2, the Vietnamese fought off the Mongols, like Genghis Khan's Mongols. And they didn't just fight them off, they annihilated the Mongols. The Mongols had to run. So the Vietnamese always had a good history of kicking ass. So just be real careful if you ever start a fight in Springvale in Melbourne or Cabramatta in Sydney. You're in for an ass kicking. Alright, that's it for me tonight. I'll see you the fuck later.